So here we are, and we have the porter that we brewed during our Genesis fermenter review. So our last step of the process is we're actually going to go ahead and try to siphon this out and just make sure that that goes smoothly.
This brings us to a new thing that we're going to kind of try, which we're going to call Brew N A. Like a Q&A, but you know, with brewing stuffs. So the whole idea is that we're going to be going through a lot of brews that we're going to be showcasing on the channel. So you know, you'll get a chance to be with us when you taste this. You were obviously here when we brewed it because it was part of the Genesis fermenter review that we did last week, 2 weeks ago, whenever it was. But during us brewing, we're going to answer questions that we get from you guys on the channel. So while you're watching this, brainstorm, think of things that you want to ask us, and then feel free to post them in the comments below.
So we just got our auto siphon here and a bucket of some sanitizer, and if all else goes to plan, should be able to take this, make a mess. It's just like the old first time we stuck it in. It looks like this one's being a bit on the snug side when it comes to the fit.
There you go.
There we go. Hey, look at that. She works.
So definitely a little bit of a learning curve with this. Be sure to read the instructions. Of course, if you've already watched us do it, you've kind of learned a couple of our mistakes, which is good. But yeah, so one of the questions we've gotten on a recent video while this is going is we had a hard cider video which showed how easy it is to take apple juice and turn it into hard cider. One viewer asked us, can you do the same with Arizona sweet tea? What do you think?
Heck yeah. So yeah, as long as whatever you're trying to ferment doesn't have any preservatives that are going to inhibit your yeast from fermenting, if it's got fermentable sugar in it and you pitch yeast, it's going to ferment. The only thing I would say for iced tea, if you're going to try to ferment something like that, is don't expect it to be sweet after it ferments.
Yeah.
That's what most people are very surprised about with ciders, is they're like, the cider's really
so
dry, and it's because all of your sugar is going to ferment out. So
yeah. Some people like unsweetened tea though. I mean, maybe that's going to be the same kind of flavor. I don't know. We haven't done it yet, so look for that maybe in a future video. Yeah.
Oh. Looks like we are almost done. And
so we have 5 gallons.
Sweet. So we have 5 gallons. One of the issues I saw that I was worried about, but it doesn't seem to be an issue on this fermenter, is that when we stuck our auto siphon in, it seems to actually sort of bottom out in the lid.
That's maybe a 1/2 inch off the bottom of the Genesis fermenter. So
Pretty much right there.
yeah, so if you're using an auto siphon, you're worried about why, you know, if it can reach the bottom or if it's going to go all the way down into the bottom, how hard it is to reach that level. I feel like that pretty much answers that. And there's nothing that's left behind that I see that.
Yeah, that's just all true.
Yeah, I don't see the need to pick any of that up.
All right, now that we got that out of the way, we are enjoying our porter.
Yeah, fruits of our labor here. So first of all, great job on this. It's tasting really good.
Oh, I haven't even tasted it yet.
Yeah, I took a quick sip before you even got back to the table. I didn't want to wait. It's tasting really good though.
Yeah.
Great balance of like roast with like bittersweet chocolate kind of flavors.
Got that little bit of nuttiness from the brown malt in there. So
yeah, overall very dry. Obviously subdued on any sort of crystal or caramel characters. Clean, nice drinking porter.
Genesis didn't ruin it, so
yeah. So yeah, half the batch was gone. But
so what would you say? I mean, our verdict on that fermenter is anyway. I mean, it
was a unique experience. I think the biggest thing is the learning curve, because there's a couple things that are different that, I mean, us as home brewers get into our old habits that you do have to kind of realize are a little bit different with using the Genesis. I think at the end of the day, I think it was perfect.
Yeah,
I think it's an ideal fermenter.
Especially if you're going to use those bags. That was by far, I mean, then that's exactly what the fermenter was designed for, was to use those bags. But yeah, they definitely make things a little weird when it comes to the whole, you know, pushing out airspace thing. So just something to be aware of.
Yeah, I mean, basically you got to realize you're treating it as a variable capacity fermenter. So the bags will expand inside the fermenter as it's fermenting, obviously, which makes it so that if you're doing 3 gallons, it starts at 3 gallons, and the batch just expand it to whatever it needs to be.
Yep.
That's definitely a plus. And then that not having to clean up at the end, I mean, that was amazing.
That was definitely the easiest cleanup job I've ever done. So
yeah, overall, if you get used to that system, I would say it's definitely worth a go.
All right, there you have it, Genesis Fermenter.
So yeah, to answer a couple more questions that we've gotten on our channel so far, one person was curious as to how we can use tap water.
So tap water is gonna change no matter every place you live. Sometimes it's gonna be perfectly usable in beer, other times not so much. The main thing here is we have very good natural water. The only thing that we have to worry about is that the city does put chlorine in the water, which is highly volatile. So generally what we recommend here is that if you're gonna pre-boil it or at least heat it up before you use it, it's gonna drive off any of that chlorine, so it's a non-issue. If you're gonna use it as top-off water, we recommend at least pre-boiling it first, or easier than that. Usually for top-off water, we just say go buy some store-bought water and use that.
Thing, yeah, because it's already coming sanitary anyway. I mean,
exactly, yeah.
Gallon jugs. On the chlorine note, I think there's 2 things that you gotta kind of be cautious with, depending on where you are. If you're in an area with worse water, your local water company might use chloramines instead of chlorine, which that's very different because you can't. The chloramines don't volatilize off; they don't evaporate. So you'd have to use something like Camden tablets to get rid of the chloramines. Whereas here, by the time we get to strike temperature, all the chlorine has evaporated off because it's the kind of chlorine that's a gas in nature. So that's the biggest thing. If your water tastes bad, you probably should do something to treat your water. I think that's maybe a good rule of thumb.
So one thing you can do is if you're trying to use your own tap water and you want to essentially pre-filter it, you can use a reverse osmosis filter. These are going to be expensive and tend to waste a lot of water, so that's the drawback to that.
But the ROs will deplete your mineral content, so you have to build up your own mineral content, which is good if you want to really exact in the water chemistry. A lot of people, just for a blanket filter, they just use a carbon filter, which are really common with the 10-inch housings. Carbon filter will get rid of any chlorines or chloramines, and then also strip out a small amount of some of the minerals as well. Not as much as a reverse osmosis, but clean up your water a bit too. So those are really good. Boil time for IBUs on hops. So that was a question that we got that was talking about how you don't need long boil times, and some people want to hit a certain number of IBUs. What's the best way to hit those IBUs when you're doing a short boil? And the proposed solution was doing a separate boil on the side or doing something the night before. Our general thought is just add more hops.
Add more hops. You're going to get some of that sort of vegetal bitterness by adding more hops. Otherwise, though, I kind of like the idea of trying to do like a separate boil to utilize hops a little bit better.
My thing is, if time's an issue, I like to keep everything as simple as possible.
Well, that's true, yeah, because it's inevitably it's going to change the way your bitterness comes through. So
yeah, it's something fun to experiment with. If you end up doing that with a separate boil, we'd love to hear how it goes. But or just use higher IBU hops. I guess we didn't mention that too. So like if you're doing a blonde ale and you don't want a lot of hop character, but you're doing a 15-minute boil, adding something that's like Warrior or
cryo hops now.
Cryo hops, yeah, just
25% alphas.
Yeah, tiny bit of those hops. You don't get a ton of the plant matter. You don't get a ton of the flavor. Oh, you might with cryo hops with the short boil, but hey, it can only be a good thing, right? Yeah, so that's how you get your IBUs. Equipment spotlight. So right here we have a brand new in-box Riptide pump from Blichmann Brewing, Engineering. Yeah.
That place, those guys that like make stuff. I think they're engineers. There's this guy that started. His name's John Blichmann.
He is knighted. So in here, brand new, in-box, not in-box. Just joking.
Out of box.
Riptide
in real life.
Why don't you tell them why we ended up getting a pump actually?
So this pump actually started getting a little bit of marketing hype last summer, I believe, and I caught whiff of it. And basically, what makes this pump stand out from other pumps is that it just has a couple 3 features that, if you've been brewing for a while, are so obviously useful. And yet no pump up until this time point has had these features.
He was begging me all summer to get one, so we finally actually reached out to Blichmann, and they sent us this pump so that we can show it to you guys.
We also have the MKII and a March pump, I believe. So we've used both of those, and we actually have the ability, we can put them all to the test. So let us know in the comments of this video what you want to do. We've started working on the review, but we can always add some more footage to it. What's really neat about this pump that no other brewing pump has actually had up until now is it's got an on-off switch here. It's also got a tri-clove fitting on the head, so you can unscrew that, pull it off in about, give or take 30 seconds. It has a integrated flow control valve and also a pressure relief valve that will help prime the pump if you lose prime.
All things that were really helpful to us when we used it, and yeah, we're excited to show you the review.
Cheers. Ah!
All right, so now we're gonna clean this real quick. Done.
It was a rough night. Next time, on Two Aging Men Around. Whoa, that almost went dry.
I thought you thought this through.
I thought one of the questions through, and I thought the whole concept through.